Hello, my name is Ranjan Kumar. I am here to lecture on economic, social and cultural rights, which comes under the aegis of international human rights law. The main emphasis of our study in legal framework will be the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. We will initially be looking into the introduction aspects of international economic, social and cultural rights. Then we will be examining the legal framework which is related to economic, social and cultural rights. Then we will be examining some regional instruments which also relate to and are in complement to the economic, social and cultural rights. And then we will be examining the United Nations Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights and the implementation mechanism which has been devised by it. And in the end we will be briefly concluding all these aspects. To begin with, we can state that human rights are legal statement of what human beings require to live fully independent lifespans with equality, liberty and freedom. Economic, social and cultural rights are too considered to be human rights. All human rights, civil, cultural, economic, political and social, are recognized as a universal, indivisible and interdependent body of rights, as originally foreseen in the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Before 1945, international law did not concern itself with how states treated individuals within their own borders. But as history has shown us, the persecution of Jews in the Germany before the Second World War required the international community to wake up and look into the aspects where even the laws and the practices of states within their borders with respect to the treatment they met out to their individuals or some ethnic minority concerned was also looked into. As a reaction to events prior to and during the Second World War, the Allies and later the international community as a whole came to the belief that the establishment of the New World Order should be based upon a commitment to the protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms. These include right to education, right to housing, right to adequate standard of living, right to science and culture, etc. There are international and national regional instruments available for the protection of these human rights. Looking into the legal framework that gives us the international frameworks, international instruments which are for the protection of economic, social and cultural rights, the primary international instruments to recognize most of the economic, social and cultural rights are the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, 1948, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, 1966, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966. The other international instruments are Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1966, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, 2006. All these legal frameworks in this lecture we will see that have certain provisions with respect to protection of economic, social and cultural rights in general. One of the initial important instruments of human rights is the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, 1948. The UDHR recognizes the right to social security in Article 22. It also recognizes right to work in Article 23, the right to rest and leisure in Article 24, the right to an adequate standard of living in Article 25, the right to education in Article 26 and the right to benefits of science and culture in Article 27. All these rights combined together, we can understand that they form a protection given to individuals within the borders of the country or the member state of ICESCR. In addition thereto, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, the ICESCR, provides the different rights in different articles. For example, to ensure the equal right of men and women to the enjoyment of all economic, social and cultural rights is mentioned in Article 3. It also takes care of the women who are disabled, who are handicapped, because of the fact that those women are put to certain aspects which is also considered as double discrimination, because being women also they are discriminated against in many states and societies, and their disability, the physical disability which they are born with or are suffering with, also gives them the double disadvantageous position in society. Then there is right to work and to just and favorable working conditions of employment, protection against forced or compulsory labor in Articles 6 and 7, which is also related to every aspects of labor related problems or the minimum wages and all those things. Right to join trade unions and take collective labor action is mentioned in Article 8 of ICESCR. Right to social security including social insurance is in Article 9. Social security also includes to provide for certain housing, food, clothing, etc. Right to protection of the family including protection for mothers and children is provided in Article 10. When we talk about protection of family, we are also talking about the main unit which constitutes to become the society, which is also required to be protected, so that the broader target of ensuring economic, social and cultural rights to individuals, not also with the conservation of their family and health aspects of their family, but also as a social unit. Right of everyone to adequate standard of living for himself and his family, like adequate food, clothing and housing, including security of tenure, protection from forced eviction and access to affordable, habitable residence, well located and culturally adequate housing, and continuous improvement of living conditions in Article 11 is provided Article 11 of ICESCR is provided. Further, right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, including the right to healthy living conditions and available, accessible, acceptable and quality health services is provided in Article 12 of ICESCR. Right to education, one of the most important rights, has also been provided into Article 13, which states that right to education includes ensuring that primary education is free and compulsory for all without any discrimination, and that education is sufficiently available, accessible, acceptable and adapted to the individual. Right of everyone to participate in cultural life and enjoy the benefits of scientific progress, and to also the benefit from the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary or artistic production of which he is the author, has also been provided in ICESCR in Article 15, which requires that the continuous development of the standard of living of human beings, either individually or collectively, has to be ensured. Coming on the other regional instruments which also ensure at their regional levels the economic, social and cultural rights. The European Social Charter 1961 has provisions for the protection of a wide range of economic, social and cultural rights, which include the right to work, to favorable working conditions, the right to join trade unions and to take collective labor action, the right to health, the right to social security, including the right to medical assistance and the right to social welfare services. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights 1981 has provisions for the protection of right to work, the right to health and the right to education. The additional protocol to the American Convention on Human Rights in the area of economic, social and cultural rights 1988, also known as Protocol of San Salvador, has provisions for a range of economic, social and cultural rights within the system of inter-American human rights, like right to work, just, equitable and satisfactory conditions of work, formation of trade union rights, right to social security, right to health, right to food, right to education, right to benefits of culture and protection of the handicapped within the system of inter-American human rights. We can see that these regional instruments on the protection of economic, social and cultural rights are in complement with and in addition to the international Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights of 1966. Over the years of the existence of ICESCR, the constitutions of different countries have provisions to protect these rights. Moreover, apart from the ICESCR and the aforesaid regional instruments, some other instruments for the protection of the economic, social and cultural rights are the Limburg Principles on the implementation of the ICESCR 1987. The different legal systems use the Limburg Principles to decide whether or not there are violations of economic, social and cultural rights. The obligation of the states under the ICESCR is perceived as a combination of obligations of conduct and obligations of result. While the undertaking of state parties to take steps under Article 2(1) to realize the rights protected in the covenant is an obligation of conduct and has immediate application, the realization of the relevant rights in most cases is an obligation of result that may be achieved progressively. For the implementation of all these rights which have been enshrined in different instruments and different principles which have come into force from time to time, we also have the most important organ, which is also known as United Nations Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. The UN Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights was established in 1985 and has the primary function of checking and devising the implementation mechanism for the ICESCR. With its various powers and duties, this committee supervises the observance of economic, social and cultural rights by states party to the ICESCR. The state parties to the Covenant on Economic, Cultural and Social Rights are obliged to submit reports regularly to the committee on how they are implementing these rights. These reports are to be submitted to the United Nations Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights after every 5 years. The committee emphasizes on defining the rights with respect to economic, social and cultural aspects by the state parties and monitors protection against any violation of such rights. In addition thereto, the committee also provides interpretations regarding the role of the state parties to the ICESCR. The committee is also tasked with the study of state parties' reports and submit its report on them to the UN Economic and Social Council. The committee is even supposed to formulate suggestions and recommendations of general and at times specific nature based on its study of the states parties' reports and reports by specialized agencies. To conclude, we have to state that human rights are rights rooted in appeal to human nature, which all human beings have simply because they are humans. Two features set these rights apart from other rights. First, human rights are demands or claims individuals or groups make against their societies or governments. A human right is therefore a moral right held unconditionally and unalterably by all and only human beings. Human rights are often said to belong to persons already prior to and independently of legislative enactment. In fact, we can state that legislative enactment came after the formation of the society itself. So all the legislative enactments undertaken later on by the societies or by the states as such should be in consonance with the human rights. It is not out of place to mention here what H.L.A. Hart has stated about natural rights or the human rights. He says that human rights are rights which all men have if they are capable of choice. They have the rights of men and not only if they are members of same society or stand in same special relation to each other. These rights are not created or conferred by man's voluntary action like other moral rights. So we are left with a question that what are economic, social and cultural rights? Human rights cover a wide range of aspects of human existence considered essentially for life of dignity and security. Some of these relate to the freedom of the individual to act as she or he pleases as long as that action does not infringe on the rights and freedoms of others. These liberty-oriented rights are usually called civil and political rights and include freedom of speech and religion, the right to fair trial, and the right to be free from torture and arbitrary arrest. Other rights relate to conditions necessary to meet basic human needs, such as food, shelter, education, health care, and gainful employment. These are called economic, social, and cultural rights. Here we also should take example of India, which has also been a party to economic, social, and cultural rights and has ratified the ICESCR on 10th April 1979. However, India has made certain reservations to some of the provisions of ICSCR. The reservation clause of India is with reference to, first of all, Article 1 of ICSCR, which declares that the world, which talks about the self-determination. India has declared with the reservation clause that the words "the right of self-determination" appearing in the first Article 1 of ICESCR apply only to the peoples under foreign domination, and that these words do not apply to sovereign independent states or to a section of a people or nation which is the essence of national integrity. This directly reflects the current issue which relates to the Kashmir, which India is right now considering as its integral part. Similarly, Article 9 of ICSCR declaring its position that the provisions of the article shall be so applied as to be in consonance with the provisions of clauses 3 to 7 of Article 22 of the Constitution of India. Further, under the Indian legal system, we can understand that there is no enforceable right to compensation for persons claiming to be victims of unlawful arrest or detention against the state. Moving further, Articles 4 and 8 of ICSCR has also been reserved, and India has declared with respect to that the provisions of the said article shall be so applied as to be in conformity with the provisions of Article 19 of the Constitution of India. As we all know that Article 19 of the Constitution of India talks about freedom of speech, formation of trade unions, etc., which also directly concerns itself with the economic, social, and cultural rights. So all the reservations which are mentioned in Article 19 of the Constitution of India has been reserved by India while ratifying and signing the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Article 7C of ICESCR declaring that the provisions of the said article shall be so applied as to be in conformity with the provisions of Article 16(4) of the Constitution of India. Article 16 of the Constitution of India, as we know, relates to equality of opportunity in matters of public employment, and Clause 4 of the Article 16 is saving clause enumerating that nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any provision for the reservation of appointments of posts in favor of any backward class of citizens which, in the opinion of the state, is not adequately represented in the services under the state. So we can say that Article 7C of ICSCR, which talks about equality of opportunity without any discrimination, has been saved by India in its signing of the ICSCR because of the reason that certain reservations are given to some underprivileged sections or castes in India under the Indian Constitution, so that such article of 7 of ICSCR does not put any obligation which goes against the spirit of the Constitution of India. Further, we can say that if we study the relevant articles of the ICSCR against which the reservation clause is made by India, along with the provisions of the Constitution of India with respect to which India has made its savings, we find that the provisions of Constitution of India itself guarantees the required rights of ICSCR under the Part 3 of its Constitution, which relates to the fundamental rights. It is only that the Constitution of India relates the practicable approach towards those rights which the functioning and implementation of these rights in accordance with the complex structure and functioning of its legal system. Furthermore, while talking about the implementation mechanism, which has been a big issue in while discussing the economic, social and cultural rights, we have to state that judicial activism is one tool which has brought revolution in many modern legal systems, which has to be considered so that wherever the will of the state is lacking, the judiciary by its judicial activism can fulfill those gaps and be instrumental in implementing the economic, social and cultural rights. We also have in India the example of the Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan case. While India was party to Convention on Elimination on Discrimination against Women, but it had still not ratified it and no proper law was in place. In that case, Supreme Court of India had taken a cue from CEDAW and directed the government to implement certain guidelines so that the sexual harassment of women at workplace should be deprecated and taken action against. So we can say where there is judicial activism on part of the judge, the non-justiciable status of economic, social and cultural rights should not be a barrier to the enforcement of the rights contained therein where there is judicial activism on the part of our judges. All over the world, the judiciary has moved from the legalistic plane to judicial activism. Our judges should be motivated by a dynamic, progressive and forward-looking philosophy of law. There has to be an enlightened approach to the social and developmental engineering of law. Even otherwise, the economic, social and cultural rights are considered, as far as the implementation mechanism is concerned, considers the national machinery to be the most effective and instrumental aspect of implementation of economic, social and cultural rights. What the judiciary of any state urgently needs is a new humanism and a well-founded and growing concern for the civil rights and liberties of their people. Law should never be an end in itself, but merely a means to an end, a means and instrument for safeguarding the people from arbitrariness and from oppressive and repressive actions by government and its functionaries or by powerful conglomerates within the boundaries of the state. The judges of any state should mold and interpret their laws to produce justice. They should realize that the majestic generalities of their constitution and the laws have content and significance which vary from age to age. And such a judicial activism will not leave any scope in the implementation mechanism of economic, social and cultural rights. Moving further, the ICSCR says that states have to undertake steps individually and through international assistance and cooperation to the maximum of their available resources to achieve progressively the full realization of the rights. However, the obligation does not imply that states can prefer the full realization of rights indefinitely. All states are obliged to take immediate steps, and as the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights asserts, there is a core minimum duty on governments to ensure that everyone at least has access to essential levels of economic and social rights such as food, shelter, primary health care and basic education. At the same time, according to a United Nations Development Programme report, most budgets can accommodate additional spending on human development by reorienting national priorities. Thus, it is the obligation of the state to prioritize its resources to be able to meet these minimum obligations, and even during times of severe resource constraints, the most vulnerable members of society must be protected. According to the obligations and duties as enshrined in the ICSCR, the states or the national governments bear the primary responsibility for making human rights a reality. As an initial step, the states must prioritize minimum core obligations and outline the minimum essential levels of each of the rights. The classical example being the minimum core obligations is the obligations emanating out of the right to education, which enunciates the right to free primary education as a core obligation, which cannot be done away by any of the state parties. These core obligations, along with other obligations of the states, requires the governments not to discriminate in their laws, policies or practices on any grounds and prioritization of the most vulnerable while allocating resources. The states must respect people's rights and protect people's rights not only from the state machinery but even from other people or non-governmental bodies or corporations, and check any abuse of these rights. So we can also state that states cannot make excuses that certain actions of some multinational companies does not come under its action because it is the state different from the private corporations functioning within the state. Lack of resources for the implementation of the rights enshrined under the various human rights instruments is no excuse, though it is admitted that the governments may need to realize economic, social and cultural rights. States also have obligations to respect, protect and fulfill economic, social and cultural rights when they act beyond their borders. It is not that economic, social and cultural rights are only subject to the action of the state within the borders and subject to the protection of their citizens only. It is also pertinent to note that just because of the difficulties which sometimes arise in the enforcement of particular rights, it is better to define a legal right in terms of recognition and protection by the legal order. This does not unduly narrow the meaning of the legal right. The state must endeavor to fulfill people's rights as enshrined in ICESCR and other human rights instruments, making them a reality in practice. Before leaving, I would make a conclusive statement with respect to rights. Rights to whomsoever it accrues always gives a corresponding duty to the other person. While understanding and studying economic, social and cultural rights, we can understand it in very brief statement or the understanding of the jural correlatives of Hoffeld, which states that every right will ensue a correlative duty with it. So all the economic, social and cultural rights as enshrined in ICESCR put a correlative duty upon the states which are parties and members to the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Thank you.